Hello, everyone, and welcome to Todd Talks. Today, we're talking about the Arcane Trickster, but before that happens, we have a survey that's up right now. I believe the links should be in our Twitch chat at this very moment. There's also an announcement about that survey on D&D Beyond itself. That is helping us figure out what you want in terms of creative content on D&D Beyond from both myself and also James Haeck, our lead writer at D&D Beyond. So if you have the time and you want to help us shape the creative content to better suit your needs as a D&D player, fill out that survey. This is a chance for you to express yourself, to be heard, and we're just very excited about being able to get feedback on everything that we've been doing and everything that we could be doing. So, but let's talk about one of my favorite subclasses ever, and maybe it's too good. Maybe it's too good. It's the rogue Arcane Trickster.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, Joey. Like, tell me about the Arcane Trickster.
Yeah. Okay. So Arcane Trickster is a rogue subclass that I think a lot of people know of already by now. It's one of the core 3 rogue subclasses from the player's handbook. And it's unique among rogues in that it has a little bit of spellcasting power.
Yeah.
Right. If you were to grade all of the classes in the entire player's handbook on like how much magic do they have, you'd kind of get 3 categories. There is the full spellcasters, your wizards, your clerics, your druids, your bards. They go from 1st level spells all the way to 9th level spells. That's the meat and potatoes of their class design. Then there's the half-casters, the rangers and paladins, who are, you know, kind of martial power on one side, little magic power to assist them on the other side. And then at the very, very martial on one side, a little bit of magic on the other, you've got Eldritch Knight, stuff like Way of Four Elements Monk and Arcane Trickster. So this is a subclass that really focuses on the standard rogue stuff: sneak around, sneak attack, infiltrate, charm someone, but they amplify it just a little bit with some illusion and enchantment magic.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, obviously that with Arcane Trickster, you are getting magic, you know, up to 4th level spells, but it has some innate abilities that are extremely magical that push things over the edge. And one of the biggest ones is your use of Mage Hand. Mage Hand is a mandatory cantrip. It's one of the most useful ones in D&D, but yours is invisible. And that is what makes this so powerful. Not only that, you can do some really trickstery things with it because you know, no one else quite has something like this.
Yeah.
And it all sorts of hijinks.
Hijinks is really the word for it. Though you can play this class to the hilt and be really that trickster, but I think you can do some really, really sinister stuff here if you are of an evil inclination.
It is a subclass. I would argue you could play an assassin. You could play a saboteur. You could play a trickster. You could be a poisoner. You know, you can be blackmailing people. You know, you could be putting stolen items into someone else's pouch and then telling the guards. You know?
I think these days, when you hear the word trickster, you have the sort of Peter Panish imp that comes to your mind. But if you look through world mythology, Greek mythology, Norse mythology, there are some tricksters who get up to some really nasty stuff. They're not jolly elves. They're really kind of, they are like saboteurs of life, of romance, of success, punishers of hubris, that sort of thing.
I would look to Gremlins and the history of Gremlins. The pure death toll that you can find with the Arcane Trickster. Let's and this is the core of everything that this entire subclass is about. And what I love about it is it just kind of builds and builds upon this. This is what I love the most about D&D subclasses that take that first 3rd level ability and just stack.
Yeah.
So explain what you get at level 3.
Yeah, so you actually get a fair bit. But let's talk about that one you mentioned earlier, Mage Hand. Mage
Yeah.
Hand is a cantrip that is available to wizards and sorcerers, and I think that's it. And they can use it for perfectly normal things. It's a minor little bit of telekinesis, a lift, move, a tiny amount of weight. And it's fine. It's fine if you're a wizard and you just want to, do a little bit of Jedi stuff. But with the Arcane Trickster, you at third level, when you enter the subclass, automatically get an ability called Mage Hand Legerdemain, which essentially means you can use this Mage Hand to telekinetically do a lot of thief stuff that normally you'd have to get up close and personal to do. You can pickpocket someone. You can pocket someone. You can you can use your thieves tools at range to disable traps and unlock doors. A very useful thing if you're playing a classic dungeon crawl and you have a suspicion that a door is trapped. Is you just don't get near the door when you're trying to open it, right? If there's a crushing block trap above your head, right above the door, just don't stand under it.
Yeah. That's you might. This is who you want to be playing in the Tomb of Annihilation,
right? Yes.
This, why get so close?
Mm-hmm. and it's very rogue. Why would a rogue ever be putting themselves in harm's way, even if it's to do that one thing they're remarkable at, opening doors and disabling traps?
And one of the key parts of this is that you because of the invisibility that is laid upon your mage hand specifically, you can perform all these tasks without the creature necessarily noticing. So it's your sleight of hand versus their perception check.
Yeah. Usually mage hand as a cantrip is quite obvious. It's not. It's a big glowy hand that kind of reaches out and takes something, but you're a rogue. You do not do such things. So being able to turn it invisible and use your own sleight of hand to keep people from noticing, right, the lich's phylactery hovering through the air into your hand is perfectly roguish.
What I love is already I'm sold. At third level, right? Like right. At third level, I'm already just. This is like we've already said. You as an arcane trickster, maybe you've got a bit of poison and you want to dip into someone's, ale in the tavern, right? Maybe you just want to make them sick. Maybe you want to kill them off. But you can do that. You can use your sleight of hand to attempt to do this, or you can take, a key from a guard, even though you're actually in prison. Maybe you purposely decide to be put in prison so you can do this, because you have this unique ability that no one else has. And what I like about these unique abilities when it comes to subclasses is they're not as known. Like, everyone may know about Mage Hand. Not everyone's going to know about Invisible Mage Hand.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the sort of thing that I think you can get into really cool world-building role-playing stuff with, because worlds like the Forgotten Realms and other official campaign settings, a lot of these wizardly spells are kind of rigidly and academically known by practitioners of magic. And so once you start playing someone who has put their own cheeky spin on a classic spell, then you can kind of play with the assumptions of those rigid academic wizards who know how Mage Hand works. It's just a cantrip and blah, blah, blah. No, you're a rogue, and you scoff at the law, including the laws of magic.
Now, there are some things that you should know when it comes to, yes, you can cast spells our first level and higher, and this is very advantageous, but they must be of illusion or enchantment. There's a few exceptions later on at higher levels where you get to choose different spells. This does prevent you from doing some really nasty stuff with, say, Booming Blade right out of the gate and stuff. So this
is a really interesting restriction, and all of the 1/3 caster subclasses have it. Eldritch Knight is restricted to abjuration and evocation, defense and offense. The Way of Four Elements monk is restricted to a very specific list of elemental spells. And the game, I want to encourage you, when you look at these restrictive schools, as not it being a restriction. Try and flip the understanding of it, right? Because you are not a spellcaster who's being restricted. You are a rogue who has specific access to a certain amount of spells. And even right at 3rd level, you do get to break that rule. You learn 3 first level spells when you were a 3rd level rogue, and 2 of them must be from your restricted schools, from enchantment and illusion. But you have a wildcard spell even at 3rd level, and that can be from any spell school at all, as long as it's on the wizard spell list. And you have a lot of options.
Yes.
I think that the hardest part of these restrictions is just knowing how to browse the options that you have available to yourself. It's pretty easy, I think, with the D&D Beyond sort of spell sorting tool, right? You'll go up to the top menu, and you'll go to game rules, and you go to spells, and you'll go to wizard spells, and then you'll further go down and restrict yourselves to enchantment and illusion. But even for new players, even just doing a simple advanced search like that can feel like, what, I really have to do all this just for this class? But it's worth it. It's very much worth it.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously I'd be tempted as a thief to maybe grab shield just for giggles, and booming blade, anything that enhances my sneak attack.
Right.
When you look at those enchantment, again, that idea that maybe you're enchanting people from afar. You're causing, Crown of Madness, or all kinds of spells that you could be. I mean, if you're trying to be kind of that ninja character, you're very good at getting into places because of this mage hand already, but now you have the added benefit of a little bit of magic to move this along. If you want to frame somebody, yes, you take that diamond, you put it in their pocket, and then you minor illusion them stealing it.
Yeah.
Or silent image them doing the task.
There are legitimately so many good spells.
So much deception, and obviously I think you need to use your expertise and go into sleight of hand, and I really feel like deception's right after that. Yeah. You gotta go deception, sleight of hand.
I think there are kind of 2 ways of going about picking your spells when you're playing an Arcane Trickster, especially low level. There's the route that you suggested, which I would call kind of the creative route, using stuff like illusions, like silent image sort of illusions and stuff like that, to socially trick people, make people think that distract them with creative illusions. But if you're the kind of person who isn't so much interested in free form kind of wacky hijinks, there are a number of options for your spells also that are more, I guess, kind of standard. And here are the ones that I'd like to talk about. The first would be Color Spray, which is a very, I would say, defensively oriented illusion spell. So definitely a combat spell. And it basically blasts a number of creatures in front of you, and it targets, it doesn't deal damage, but it affects creatures with low hit points. You roll a number of hit points, kind of like the sleep spell, and kind of total up all the creatures in there. And then for 1 turn after that, until the end of your next turn, all of those creatures affected by your blast of prismatic colors are blinded. And that's useful for everyone, but it's especially useful for you, because blinded creatures, you have advantage on attacks against them, which synergizes really sharply with your sneak attack. And if you've got a party with, 2 rogues or any other class that really cares about advantage, if you've got a ranger with sharpshooter who really wants an extra bit of accuracy so they can really bust open some damage on there, just being able to give your whole party advantage and stave off a round of enemy attacks for a turn is awesome. And just like that, on a single target level instead of an AoE level, there's the iconic, the classic Tasha's hideous laughter, which just locks down a single enemy as they laugh. And Arcane Trickster, pull a little gag, make a funny face, do something trickery, and they are bestruck with incapacitating laughter, which likewise great for hitting sneak attacks on. It might end the spell if you deal damage to them, but I think for many rogues, that's a chance they're willing to take.
It is there's some more nefarious stuff, obviously. You know, we this means you've got like some spells from like Penny Arcade. We've got the Gift of Gab that helps you with social interactions. We've got spells like Friends. We got Fear. Enemies Abound is very tricksy if you're running through that. But also we've got, you know, Distort Value is a fun spell if you're trying to like, you know, push like the sales of the loot at the end of the adventure is kind of funny to like beat that guy.
I legitimately love the Acquisitions Incorporated spells, especially for Arcane Trickster. I can understand why some people might think, wow, these spells are awfully funny. Maybe they don't suit my stern and serious wizard, but oh, do they ever suit an Arcane Trickster?
They work very well for an Arcane Fencer. So, also, you know, and then you've got Disguise Self, right? Like Disguise Self is fantastic for getting, you know, the drop on someone, surprising, infiltration.
Man, if any rogue could have Disguise Self, they'd take it.
Absolutely, and Disguise Self is not concentration. You know, if you look at like, if you cast Charm Person, why not charm somebody? Because at the end of that, if you charm someone, they're angry at you. Well, look like someone else.
Yes.
You know, look like the sheriff of the town while you cast Charm Person. Frame people. I don't know why I'm in this mindset. I'm in a very dark mood apparently, but like there's a lot of hijinks.
Todd has enemies whom he wants to remove.
A terrible person. But also, if you want to go, and I typically don't like Charm Person as a spell. I don't like spells that like influence people's minds. I love Persuasion in D&D because there's kind of like a darkness to that kind of magic. And Hold Person's another one that's really dark. Paralyze your enemy, and this is a second level spell. And well, guess what? You definitely have advantage. Well, I mean, it's just you're just going to kill them. It's terrible. It's dark.
They're gone.
It's a dark moment in the game for D&D, and I'd even say the DM is like, woo! You just paralyze the character and then sneak attack them. That's that. I mean, you're not lawful good. I mean, like, things have gone darkness, but like when you've got like Magic Mouth, there's some funny stuff you can do there, and Mind Sliver, that's a UA, and Invisibility, Incite Greed, Mirror Image.
Incite Greed is so Arcane Trickster. Yes, another Acquisitions Incorporated spell.
Yeah, there's this really good stuff. Eventually you can get Shadow Blade that supplements your sneak attack pretty well.
Yeah, when I write these Class 101 articles, I only consider Player's Handbook spells if the class is from the Player's Handbook. But if you've got Xanathars, if you've got Acking, the number of spells open to you just balloons in a really cool way. And it makes you it makes you strong in a way that the Player's Handbook, I think, can't account for, which I think is fine. I think it's perfectly fine for this class because their spellcasting is so limited.
I do feel that the Arcane Trickster has just about everything you could ever want to do, and you could adjust later. Like, it's not a subclass I feel like you would get bored of. I think you might change your mind how you want to play it, but the fact that you have stealth, the fact that you have a little bit of magic, you have social role-playing in it, you've got just kind of like, you've got really decent combat. You're really good at kind of like everything.
Yeah,
unlike the bard who's like trades. Kind of okay at everything. You're kind of good at all of it.
Yeah.
Like in a mid-tier kind of level.
And it rocks.
And that's a third level.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about these spells forever. And I think when we get to the back half of this show, we will, because there are so many good spells to talk about. But I feel like we should strive forward a bit and see some of the other things that the Arcane Trickster gets. The Rogue is an interesting beast because its subclass features are really backloaded for the most part. You get stuff at 3rd level, and then you have to wait 6 whole levels until 9th until you get another subclass feature. Now you're gaining more spell slots and spell levels up until that point, which is good. It feels like you're advancing in your subclass even though you're not getting new features. I like that a lot. But once you get to 9th level, you get a very good feature, I think, Magical Ambush. Whenever you are hidden from a creature and you cast a spell on that creature, it has disadvantage on any saving throw it makes against the spell this turn. Awesome. Your spells don't benefit from your sneak attack, right? Sneak attack can only be made with ranged or finesse weapons. And casting Firebolt doesn't count unless your DM is very, very nice. But
yeah, very nice.
but having this magical ambush feature means that you're finally getting some value out of being hidden and casting a spell beyond the usual stuff. And I love it. Think of the many different kinds of spells you can use with this. A hold person, like you were mentioning.
Now they have disadvantage on that hold person.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're looking at enemies abound. They've got disadvantage on that, and they don't see you casting the spell because, per the description of magical ambush, they're not even aware why they're so angry and attacking their friends.
Yeah,
and neither are their friends probably. And you could be on the edge of a campfire of a group of evil mercenaries and mess with their heads in a very kind of Gandalf-like way.
With the trolls, yes.
Yeah, you could be, altering their perception of things and getting it's so powerful. Disadvantage on all their saving throws when you cast a spell because they can't see you.
Yeah. And this functions perfectly well with area of effect spells too. Not that you'd usually be taking them with a rogue, but if you really wanted to, if you were a kind of a weird oddball arcane trickster who decided to take Fireball, for instance.
Eventually, yeah, right.
I personally don't think that the Fireball is like the best arcane trickster choice for your wild card, but if you've got a little bit of pyromania in you, then you drop Fireball on a group of monsters, and because of magical ambush, they've all got disadvantage on their saving throw.
And it is an interesting point that D&D Beyond is uniquely suited to certain subclasses, especially for you finding out what you can and cannot do. like being able to be like, okay, you go into your spells, you're like, okay, spell levels, cantrips, 1, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, enchantment and illusion. Okay, now I got that. But then, you can go in there and let's see, like, is there a save? Like, what save is required? And kind of start figuring that out of like, okay, what are some really ideal spells that I can take advantage? And obviously almost everything charm is a wisdom saving throw, right? And that's the whole person. That Insight Greed, you're a better fencer now again. Phantasmal Killer, Suggestion, having advantage on all of that stuff makes you a threat at 9th level.
I think this is a really cool thing about this subclass is that the rogue excels in a very specific aspect of the exploration pillar of D&D, stealth in particular. And through that, they have a very specific niche within combat as well, which is sneak attack and then run like hell so that you can sneak attack again before you take too many hits and die. And because of things like expertise and ability to get proficiency in like persuasion, they have some social application, right? They're not socially dead in the water in a way that a class like druid or fighter might be, who generally gets no social bones thrown to them. But because of these spells and because of the way you can really fine tune what you want to do, and you can even swap out spells when you level up, 1 spell per level. You can, if you want to be a socially focused rogue with things like magical disguises and magical compulsions and stuff like that, you really can be in a way that many other rogue subclasses can't.
Absolutely.
So I think let's move on to our next Mage Hand buff, because that 3rd level feature wasn't it. There's more, including this one, Versatile Trickster, which I think is a delightful application.
Oh, it's so fun.
Starting at 13th level, you can distract targets, Looney Tunes style, by tapping on their shoulder with your Mage Hand. As a bonus action on your turn, you can designate a creature within 5 feet of your hand, and doing so gives you advantage on attack rolls against them until the end of the turn. Great, free sneak attack. Use your Mage Hand. Hello, pop up.
Yeah, you're never alone. I mean, and it makes sense. You're pulling them by the collar, or you're distracting them, and then you're getting that automatic sneak attack. So if you're ever by yourself, you're you're handling yourself really well. It's a lovely feature. Rogues get so much already. Now you're super dangerous in that swashbuckler kind of way.
I think this is an excellent subclass if you want to play a one-on-one D&D game, because they are such jacks of all trades.
They really, really are. I mean, all they need is some healing potions.
Yeah, and just use some like distort value, get a good deal on healing potions.
I mean, that's the thing. Like you're making money. Like I see this as a career thief. Like this is someone who got a little bit of everything, but never wanted to like put in the effort. Maybe.
I love the idea of this guy being a mage school dropout who was always partying with their friends on the weekends, came drunk to every test. They only learned a little bit of enchantment and illusion that they needed to get by. And then they were like, screw this.
Yeah.
they took their tuition money and ran.
And for me, like, I always wondered, like, maybe you were rejected from being in a wizardly school, or you didn't have the funds growing up. So you stole a spell book. Only like half the pages were missing, or maybe the warnings were at the end, and so you never really had that like focus, and you adapted magic to your own purposes. And that's a really fun story as well. You're on the outskirts of magic with this character, and I love it, because sometimes when you are a spellcaster, and it's something that I don't always enjoy. I don't like being fully in control or feeling all powerful. Like I don't want to become a lich. I mean, I do if I'm playing a necromancer. I want to have that journey, right?
Right.
But like this is like some down to earth magic application. Like not as wizards intended. Like wizards typically are probably looking at you like, "Come on, man." Like I would love to see a cleric rogue of some kind who's just like trading healing for deals, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't, like bring him a diamond. I'm like, maybe I'll revivify your friend. I don't know, maybe not. But you have to promise me one thing when I do. Like I would like to see something creepy like that. But I feel like that's kind of like what the Arcane Trickster is.
Yeah.
Taking all these elements and making it their own. The capstone.
Yeah, speaking of sticking it to the man.
Wow. Yeah, let's break down Spell Thief. Go ahead.
Spell Thief. Their 17th level subclass capstone. So you are, you're in the top 0.1% of Arcane Tricksters in the world when you're getting this. You gain the ability to magically steal the knowledge of how to cast a spell from another spellcaster. So it's a reactive ability. When a creature casts a spell that either targets you or includes you in the area of effect, you can use your reaction to force that spellcaster to make a saving throw. And if they fail, you steal the spell. But it's very clear here. It has to be of at least first level and of a level you can cast. So that's only up to 4th level. So you're not stealing meteor swarms here or anything. But any sort of 1 to 4th level spell, you can snatch it for yourself. And for the next 8 hours, it is added to your spell list. You can cast using your spell slots, and the creature you stole it from can't cast it either. And you can only do this once per long rest. So this is not stealing knowledge of the ancients, but it is a thorn in the side of any spellcaster you're fighting.
I mean, if you pull counterspell out of somebody,
yes,
they cannot cast this is the anti-counter spell.
Oh my god, Todd, I hadn't even considered that. Oh my gosh.
And now you have it. There is like this is a knife fight. Like like you and a wizard. They try to cast like counterspell to your party, and you're like, no, I'm gonna grab that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And now I'm gonna use it on you. Every time you try to cast a spell.
Oh, it's evil.
It's evil. It's deliciously monstrous. And I'm curious because this isn't limited by wizard anymore. You can see someone. This is where things get like are darker than you may surmise. You see someone use a smite. So, like, let's think about that. There are spells you normally would never get, like Hunter's Mark, right? Just because it's limited by 1st through 4, right? Wouldn't you be able to steal Hunter's Mark
Yep.
from a Ranger?
Yep.
Wouldn't you be able to steal Banishing Smite
Yep.
from a Paladin?
Imagine stealing Revivify from a cleric trying to save their friend. Just vicious.
Awful. And now they can't cast Revivify.
Do it. They can't do it for the next 8 hours. You have forced them to burn, to wait until they have to use something like Raise Dead or better. It's nasty.
Yeah, it's super evil, and this does make you very toe to toe, especially with any half caster, or 1/3 or 4th caster. When you're looking at like, hey, I am stealing your, ensnaring strikes. I am stealing your smites. I'm stealing these things are a big deal for you if you're a ranger or a paladin.
Yeah.
And boy, if you're stealing it from a warlock, like there's some anger. Lots of anger. Guiding bolt. You're still guiding bolt. You're giving your people advantage. These are some very interesting ways and things like that. And rightfully so. You're 17th level at this point.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing about the Spell Thief is that it's I would say it's equally good, right? The benefit you get and the drawback that you've placed on the enemy. They evenly make up the power of this ability.
It's a subclass you can really grow with and learn and enjoy. And I know there are people I even know within, who make D&D itself who are like, you know what, that's my favorite subclass. Like some real heavies in the industry are like, that is kind of perfect. It is just perfect. And I wouldn't say overpowered. I would say it's always fun.
Yeah.
Always have something to do.
Yeah. That's absolutely the way it is, I feel. Because even as you're gaining all these cool arcane tricks, don't forget that you're still playing a rogue, right? You're still gaining your sneak attack. You're still getting things like whatever it's called, the one that never lets you roll below a 10. You still got evasion.
Reliable talent.
There it is. Thank you.
You're getting your expertise. So you're getting better and better at like whether it's social interactions or acrobatics,
right,
or anything else, or your investigation. Like maybe you've decided to be a very, very good dungeon delver, and you've put everything into history and art, archaeology and all this other stuff. You're just hyper focused on being the best dungeoneer that you can be. Arcane Trickster is perfect for all of that.
Yeah, and that's why I encourage people to think of this not as a spellcaster with limitations, but as a rogue with a little something extra, because your roguishness is still the defining characteristic of this subclass.
Oh, I believe Revivify wouldn't work because of how spells.
Oh, right, because it doesn't target you. Never mind.
Yeah.
Yes, but good call.
I wish it would. And I think it would be charming.
Yes.
Because, imagine if the cap was 5 and you could steal Raise Dead from a cleric. That would be just charming.
Yeah, if you could steal spells that don't target you, it's a 17th level feature. I think that if, I think you could convince the DM to let you just steal spells. That's definitely house ruling. That's definitely not, the rules as written. But I think that it would be very fun to do something like that.
I'd be sorely tempted to for feats. There are a lot of really good feats that go along with this.
There's so many good ones.
If you really wanted to go Mage Initiate, that could get you more spells.
So if you're going the more spells route, I think there is one supreme choice, and it's Ritual Caster, a feat that doesn't usually get much love because rogues, the Arcane Tricksters don't have the ability to cast spells as rituals in the way that wizards and clerics can.
Right.
So getting your own ritual book that lets you write new rituals into it, much in the way that wizards can, and cast these spells without burning your spell slots to do it. Your very precious and limited Arcane Trickster spell slots opens up a world of possibilities, because your Ritual Caster spells are not limited to enchantment and illusion either. I think spells like Find Familiar, Identify, Detect Magic, all amazing spells that perfectly complement the Arcane Trickster. Find Familiar too. Free sneak attack. Have your little magical bird buzz around their head, and then you just zip in, and there's sneak attack for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that plays in again to this character has, I imagine, this tiny little apartment, and they have, the burnt up spell books, and they got a little bit of
Yeah.
magic here, a little bit of magic there, and they're also like, okay, but I know a few rituals too, kind of like this Constantine way, like, okay, here's my loot. I'm gonna figure out, like, detect magic. Is any of this junk? And just throwing it out, like, out your window,
Right.
like, into the dumpster, like, as you figure out what's magical and what's not.
Perfect.
There's a lot of charming stuff to be done with that. Obviously, disguise self and at the actor feat is always a nasty combo.
Yep. Skulker is always good because missing a shot while you're stealthed and losing that stealth because of it always feels bad. So just take that out of the books. Spell Sniper is a fun one. I think, especially if you can convince your DM to house rule you to be able to sneak attack with your cantrips.
So powerful.
Very strong.
So powerful.
Mobile is always good.
That is interesting. Because you can throw your Shadow Blade.
Yes. So Shadow Blade, second level illusion
spell. And use your bonus action
spell
to have it appear back in your hand.
Yes.
So you're getting your sneak attack, getting your Shadow Blade damage, and if you're really assuming that you're gonna hit, you decide to pile on another +10 to damage with a -5 modifier.
Oh, a sharpshooter? Whoa.
And if technically you have advantage.
Yeah, because they can't see you.
Well, you don't have. That's on saving throws. That's not for. Is it for attack rolls as well?
Just saving throws.
Just saving throws, yeah.
But like, if you're hidden and they don't know where you are, that's still advantage. Yeah.
It's still real nasty. Like Shadow Blade becomes very fun with the Arcane Trickster.
Yes. I think there are a number of really, really good spells that become available to you in the otherwise somewhat forgettable second level spell category. I think if you're a wizard or a cleric, your second level spells are always kind of just like, well, they're there. It's really those first and third ones where all your meat and potatoes are. But if you're an Arcane Trickster, getting stuff like Misty Step, Spider Climb, Rope Trick, Blindness, Deafness, all amazing spells. Shadow Blade, these synergize perfectly with all the stuff you want to do. Make your foes drop an area of blindness on your foes so that they can't see you when you strike from the shadows. Use a rope trick to hide from the authorities that come running down the alleyway, right? You come to a dead end, classic movie scene, you run to a dead end alley, pull out the rope, slip into your little pocket dimension. You've got a full hour in there. They don't know where you went.
You can really flavor this for just about anything. And there are so many of these feats that will also synergize with being an Arcane Trickster as well. The possibilities are kind of endless. So, like, it's just I have played this subclass, and one of my favorite moments was stealing from a very famous person, and it just became a theme that now I only steal from this person. I pickpocketed them about 5 or 6 times until they no longer wish to play games with me, because stealing their shit is endlessly hilarious to me on live streams. Part of my language, but yeah, so the Arcane Tricksters are very fun in that way. I feel like I would never. Certainly, there's lots of opportunities for multi-classing, but I just want to go full in.
Yeah, I think Rogue is a very, very solid class to go all the way to 20 with, and because of things like Spell Thief and those bonuses to your mage hand, Arcane Trickster is really rewarding to go all the way with, including 4th level spells once you get really high up.
It's that aha moment too, that 17th level, like you're at 17th level and you're like, you know what, no. There's a certain satisfaction at that point.
Oh yeah,
like you've been building up to this moment of trickery, and that's like the ultimate trickery.
Yeah.
So any other feats that come to mind other than those particular ones?
There are some other fun ones. I think we've kind of ironed out the really strong ones, things like Sharpshooter plus Shadow Blade, things like Skulker and Ritual Caster and Actor, and
there's some UA feats that are very useful
Yes,
later on
I
for
think
the Arcane Trickster, obviously. But
I think grabbing a Warlock invocation or two with a feat would be very fun using
you
that.
do technically have the spellcasting feature, so you can do the Warlock Initiate, the
Indeed.
Eldritch Initiate feat.
Hmm?
So having that mask many faces. Or
Yeah,
Devil's Sight.
yes. Devil's Sight with a rogue. Oh.
Yeah, it's always bad.
I'm a big fan of the Mage Slayer feat with this rogue. I think it's very cool to be kind of this audacious rake who turns magic users' secrets against them. Who better to kill mages than a rogue who knows all of their tricks, right?
And again, stealing that counterspell.
Yeah.
This is you
Perfect.
And me. This is you and me now, buddy.
You were expecting to summon something?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think there's another option if you've played a lot of Arcane Tricksters before and you want to have a change. I would suggest a house roll or maybe even a feat. A house rolled feat that could put some new life into the class by either adding another spell school that they can use or swapping out one of their available schools for another. The School of Transmutation is very, very good. It synergizes very, very well with the stuff that rogues want to do with spells like Featherfall, Alter Self, and Blink. Catapult, I think, is a very fun one. Expeditious Retreat, even stuff like Jump or Dark Vision or Knock, break glass in case of your lockpicking fails. I would say that as a homebrew feat, I would allow an Arcane Trickster to be able to take transmutation spells, or swap out, illusion for transmutation or enchantment for transmutation, or just fill your spell slot fill your wild card spell slots with transmutation spells. Like, once you get the ability to cast third level spells, are you telling me that you don't want to be able to cast haste on yourself?
Right.
Or just be able to do something like polymorph an enemy, right? A guard is coming to see you and you're like, nah, you are a rat now, my friend, and I'm going to be on my way.
Now, the nastiest thing you can probably do, I would say, with the Arcane Trickster, and this doesn't come online until about 7th level, but I would take the Sentinel feat.
Sentinel.
I would take Mirror Image. You're not going to get that till your 7th level. But when someone tries to attack you, you have to roll dice. They may hit one of your 3 illusionary selves. If they attack one of those illusionary selves, that does count as them targeting someone who is not you.
That's Jeremy Crawford confirmed. Yeah.
I actually, right before I start playing Avon, I actually want to confirm with him this is the rules. When I started live streaming with him. And that means that you can use a reaction to get an attack. That's a second sneak attack for you.
It's beautiful.
Now you're sneaking attack twice.
Yeah.
Sentinel lets you attack anybody as a reaction who attacks somebody that isn't you.
Yeah, Todd, someone in the comments of the Arcane Trickster 101 article I put up just yesterday mentioned this combo, and I was like, does this really work? This seems really good. Does this work? And I searched for it, and I found your tweet asking Jeremy about it. And I was like, oh, well, there it is. Yeah.
Right before we started live streaming, I'm like, because I was actually asking on behalf of a Hexblade Warlock and, smites and stuff like that, but this works even better than that, I would say. But it does not come online until 7th level. But still, it's fantastic.
Right.
You're a very scrappy rogue now. You're not getting hit.
That's the exact sort of thing why I say this is such a good solo play class. Obviously, this guy has a lot of synergy with other party members, but the way that the Arcane Trickster is able to synergize with themselves makes them very potent for one-on-one, one player, one DM D&D campaigns, which, here in quarantine, if you're quarantined with a significant other, I mean, there's no better way to pass the time than just like, once a week or even every day after dinner, play for like an hour, play your own little D&D campaign for an hour, and just go about it with your arcane trickster who's able to use sentinel and mirror image, or shadow blade and sharpshooter, stuff like that.
Yeah. And again, well, I mean, shadow blade is concentration, but mirror image is not. So now it's getting real dark.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's how I play. It is like, I very much like the Unearthed Arcana Undead Warlock. I think it's fun. It's mainly for the flavor of it. I love undead stuff. It's great. Rogue, when it comes to rogues, Arcane Trickster is absolutely my favorite. If someone just like forced me to like list my top 5, Arcane Trickster might be number 1 out of 5.
Wow.
Artificer Armorer is amazing in UA. I think it's just really fun. I like that flavor. But in terms of mechanically, the Arcane Trickster is just kind of like everything that you love about D&D.
Yeah.
Minus the healing. So I would probably take actually the feat that allows you to heal yourself.
Oh yeah.
I also like the imagery of using Mage Hand invisibly to like, sew up your wounds.
Oh my god, that's a little gruesome.
Like if you get like the injury in the back of the head like Magneto has in Days of Future Past, I do some of that.
Well, that's it does make me feel like I guess this is kind of what I've been spiraling around this whole time, but the Arcane Trickster feels like a character that would be very a place in like a fantasy novel, as much as they do in D&D. And stuff like that, knitting up your wounds with your own telekinetic mage hand, is exactly the sort of just kind of gruesome squick that doesn't quite fit in that heroic fantasy milieu of D&D, but feels right at home in a slightly grittier fantasy novel. And the range of tone that the subclass gives you the ability to play in is one of its best strengths to me. Beyond mechanical strength, anything like that, its versatility in tone and style is a lot of fun.
It's your imagination, and it's not dangerous imagination necessarily in the way of like a DM versus you in illusions when it comes to being an illusionist, but like you can knock a lantern over, you can knock on the door and make people look out the window.
Yeah, likewise, control flames, great cantrip for rogues.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. We do have a few questions.
Please.
So question, is Mage Apprentice feat and overlap to this subclass? Yeah, there's some decent stuff if you're really looking to get some spells.
Yeah.
Again, if you're really worried about healing, pop in Cure Wounds. Though you can never get above first level, feels like a bit of a loss.
Yeah, I think unless you have a really specific spell in mind, I would recommend taking Ritual Caster for spells or Healer for healing instead of Magic Initiate for this guy. But I mean, more spells. You can never go wrong with more spells and more spell slots.
Yeah, I would probably be tempted to get Shield a little bit earlier, frankly. That's real strong stuff. It doesn't fit necessarily. Well, actually, it fits fine. Yeah, I think getting Shield and then getting a bunch of extra cantrips is super, super handy. Cure Wounds not as useful because you can always feat that anyways. Though, who knows? I mean, there might be some cleric overlap that I don't foresee.
I mean, being able to just guiding bolt someone. Of
course, True Strike is totally recommended. That's another question in chat. True Strike is useful.
Strike, huh? Yeah. True Strike is a cantrip I always write off.
Yeah.
But if you're a rogue and you have time.
Yeah. If you're sniper shot.
Yeah.
True Strike's always solid. Question, Arcane Trickster versus the Soul Knife. What are your reasons for choosing one over the other? I feel like Soul Knife is really, really cool and hyper-focused on a type of play. And sometimes I enjoy that simplicity. I feel like Arcane Trickster I'm never going to get bored of. Ever. And I'm not saying I would get bored of Soul Knife, but I need to be like 100% in on Soul Knife. But and that creepy factor of not leaving wounds when you stab somebody as a Soul Knife is just very, very creepy stuff. So I think the Soul Knife is really, really cool. It's very, very evocative. It's two totally different styles of play, though.
Yeah, I think the Soul Knife is less versatile than the Arcane Trickster. Just being able to cast spells, even a limited number of them in limited quantities, means that your ability to just change what you do, what you can do, what you want to do, almost, you know, whenever you level up, is so cool. That not having it as a Soul Knife makes me a little sad. But the Soul Knife gets so many cool features. They're much more combat-focused rogue, I think, than the relatively, you know, trickstery Arcane Trickster.
Yeah. Another question was Arcane Trickster plus Shadow Monk. I just wouldn't leave Arcane Trickster. Absolutely. That synergizes in some ways. It's a bit mad. I mean, you got dexterity, you've got your intelligence that you need.
Yeah.
Now we're working with wisdom and your dexterity as well.
You kind of want charisma because you want to be that dashing rogue, man. It's
a lot because you're already going to get darkness. You're not getting silence, but boy, that is the caster shutdown of all time is silence.
Yeah.
There is something funny about stealing silence from somebody, but I don't believe you're a target. So,
man, I think it's a very cool idea in theory, but I think unless you can convince your DM to switch one of your casting stats, right, either your monk's wisdom or your Arcane Trickster's intelligence to the other, if you don't have to invest in both wisdom and intelligence, I think it would be okay. But that's homebrew, right? That's house rules.
This brings up something that I am like right now, also because of our circumstances. But my wife Megan and I are always looking at more so. I am obsessed with what two subclasses work really, really well together. And I don't find a lot of articles on this particular topic. It doesn't come up very often. People will talk about party synergy, but sometimes there are two people that are always going to play a little bit more together, and especially if you're a couple. And so what I'm kind of fascinated by is like, when you think, okay, would it be good to be Arcane Trickster and also Shadow Monk? Maybe talk to another player when you're starting a campaign. If one of you is a Shadow Monk and one of you is an Arcane Trickster, you work great together. You know, a Hexblade Warlock and a Paladin working together is great role play.
Yeah. I would love to see an Arcane Trickster and Eldritch Knight working together, right? Two bros who learn just a little bit of magic and struck out on their own. Yeah, you got to have your goth nerd prep dichotomy between these two characters.
One's an edgelord kind of goth like me, and then another one's like, bro, I'm gonna cast Booming Blade, bro. It's gonna be awesome. have that weird role play back and forth.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I don't mean to dump on multi-classing, but I do love to explore something in its entirety. I always find that to be very fun. And I think the Arcane Trickster gives you all of that. Someone's also asking about Echo Knight and also Arcane Trickster was setting up.
Oh, very fun. Very fun.
It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. Yeah. It's a nightmare scenario. I love the Echo Knight. I feel Matt did a fantastic job with Echo Knight. It scratched a particular itch I had as well. And I like the implications of stealing a possibility of yourself to create a duplicate.
Yeah. I feel if it weren't so multi-ability dependent, Trickery Cleric plus Arcane Trickster would be very fun, right? Again, if you could convince your DM to let your Arcane Trickster stuff proc off of Wisdom instead of Intelligence, you'd have a really fun little thing going for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say as a Trickery Domain Cleric, if you're an elf, get that Elven Accuracy, you pop up as a bonus action that Invoke Duplicity. Now you're rolling with 320s and use Inflict Wounds, and you are just doing massive amounts of damage.
Yeah, just
in the range of a rogue, by the way.
Yeah.
And you're a cleric, and you can cast Mirror Image, by the way. So
yeah.
Those are my feelings on all that. Pretty nasty, but I don't know what else would synergize with Arcane Trickster. We haven't really talked about races. I feel obviously you think Goblin, Goblins, great, because I
Yep.
like to play gremlins.
There are two very, very obvious choices from the player's handbook, and they're high elf and forest gnome, because they've got those bonuses to dexterity and intelligence that you're hungry for. Human is also good, right? You take ritual caster as a feat at first level, you've got find familiar, you're set for life. But once you go beyond there are a number of races for you to pick from too, once you go to things like Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and or sorry, not Xanathar's, but Volo's Guide to Monsters, Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. There's a lot of plus dex plus intelligence races for you. Let me see if I can find any other ones.
I like the find familiar thing, because I like the idea that maybe you don't have a bird, but you have like a spider or a mouse that crawls and freaks people out, and that's how you're getting your advantage, right? Or a snake. And it makes me think a lot about when I start to consider his dark materials. And considering you're familiar to be a bit of a daemon as well.
Yeah.
When you're using it as a rogue, it is kind of like integral in how you function.
Yeah. Some of the variant tieflings from Mordenkainen's are great options.
They always are. There are so many. There's a tiefling for anything.
Yes, there truly is a tiefling for anything. A tiefling for every occasion. I think playing
Zerial tiefling gets a smite.
Yeah, playing a Githyanki, I think, would be a great option. Even though they give you strength instead of dexterity, there's still great stuff going on. Getting jump and Misty Step for free, very, very good for a rogue.
Misty Step is hard to say no to.
It's hard to say no to Misty Step.
It's always hard to say no to Misty Step.
We might be coming up on time, so leave the race discussion for your home table. But I just have to restate how awesome and versatile this class is. I think it's overlooked a lot. I think it's a highly underrated subclass in the player's handbook.
I do as well. It is, again, amongst my favorite. And whenever I'm hard pressed, like, hey, people want me to just jump in, Arcane Trickster. In fact, I would say if I was to join another long-term campaign, I would just Arcane Trickster it up, because I know I'll have fun till the end, till the very, very end.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. That's about it. We could probably write 20 articles about evil stuff you could do with Arcane Tricksters. But we have a fantastic Arcane Trickster article on the site right now. It's written by James Haeck. You should check it out. It outlines a lot of what we talked about today. If you like to absorb that information but via reading, if you're one of those reading folks, then the article is fantastic as well. You've got this video to help on top of that. Also, be sure to check out our survey that is on D&D Beyond right now.
Yes.
If you go to that survey, that helps us sculpt this content. We're very focused on kind of the crunchy bits of D&D right now, the class 101s. If you want more of the same, let us know exactly what you're looking for in terms of creative content on D&D Beyond and Dungeons and Dragons in general. We would love to have your feedback. Thank you again, James Haeck, for being a fantastic writer. He has contributed to many, many D&D books. He is a joy to work with, and he is super fun to have on this show.
Todd, you're pretty good too.
I'm all right.
Thank you so much, Todd. It was a great show.
I'm a mean and terrible boss. No, everyone out there, have a great day and take care of each other.